I spent the last year developing my version of Eternal Return as a Dota 2 mod, and here's what's happened so far. For those unfamiliar, I'm going to talk about my inspiration, Eternal Return Black Survival. It's a MOBA-style battle royale game with an anime aesthetic that I fell in love with. You get dropped into Lumia Island and must loot, craft, and hunt to become the last one standing. Playing Eternal Return Black Survival, or abbreviated as ERBS or Erbs, is why I started my YouTube channel, and the game was very dear to me. Enough that I also spent many hours making a special routing tool website, and was willing to dual boot into Windows just to play the game, only to reboot back into Linux once I was done playing for the day. However, over time, the game was patched to become something else. It was no longer the game I fell in love with, and the dual boot shuffle didn't feel worth it to me anymore. So, disillusioned with Erbs, I dreamt of making my own Eternal Return-like. There was just one problem: intellectual property. Originally, I was thinking about doing Erbs 2 as a StarCraft 2 mod, but there was a fatal issue for me. I'd heard that Blizzard would try to claim the intellectual property to my game. That after the huge success of Dota 2 and League of Legends, Blizzard added some legal junk so that they would own the intellectual property to any custom map published in the arcade. Though, I'll admit that I'd never actually read the agreement myself. This is where Dota 2 modding comes in. I just so happened to tune into Wraith Kira's stream, and he mentioned the prospect of making an Eternal Return-like game as a Dota 2 mod, and importantly, that they wouldn't try to do the Blizzard thing, meaning that I'd own my mod. Though, I'll admit that I'd never actually read Dota's agreement. In any case, this was the green light for me to begin my Dota modding journey. We spent some time in DMs discussing what to change and what to keep from Eternal Return. A lot of our ideas seemed cool, but we didn't know what might be possible in a Dota 2 mod. So it was time to get started with something basic. A simple, bare-bones prototype as a proof of concept. So I got started watching PokeDev's tutorial series. The series touches on almost every part of modding, from installing the modding tools to publishing the mod on the workshop, so it was just what I needed. Armed with Dota modding basics, I set out to recreate Yuki from Eternal Return as part of the prototype, but even something as basic as Yuki's passive was giving me trouble. Not because it was rocket science or anything, but because I just wasn't familiar enough with the tools. So I went where people are quite familiar with modding: the Mod Dota Discord server. The Mod Dota Discord server is the community associated with the highly useful Mod Dota website, a site which documents much of the Dota API and hosts numerous tutorials on modding Dota. I got enough help there with Yuki's passive to get it working, and have come back for help many times this past year. In the interest of time, this will be the only part of the video where I mention them, but do know that I couldn't have gotten even the prototype done without them, and whenever I got really stuck on something, they were there to help me. Huge thanks to the Mod Dota community. Now back to Yuki. After I had the passive done, the next most basic ability is his Q, just a simple auto attack reset with some extra damage. Or so I thought. But as it turns out, Dota doesn't support auto attack resets. I could get it close, but it just couldn't be done in a Dota mod. At least, not in a way that felt right to me. With a truly faithful copy of Yuki being off the table, I decided it was time to compromise while saving some time. Dota 2 already has a ton of abilities to steal from, and most of them are really easy to just give to other characters. So the plan now was to just find stuff that was close enough, since there were still plenty of other things needed for the prototype. With abilities basically taken care of, the item system was next. I needed an equipment system, a crafting system, and a way to make items droppable and pick-upable. Unfortunately, Dota was only designed to allow dropping and picking up, so the other two required some kind of hacky solutions to get something serviceable. So at this point, I had a hero with some random abilities, and a bare-bones implementation of the item system. Pretty exciting stuff, but there was still a glaring issue. Adding these things the Dota way was requiring me to manually edit files in multiple places, something very tedious and error-prone, so it was time to get serious about text file generation. To save myself the trouble of manually editing files, I started generating most of them with a Python script. This ended up being a huge time saver. I could define my items and recipes in a compact way and have the script take care of the rest. Eventually, file generation would creep its way into other parts of the mod, including heroes, abilities, pre-caching, scripts, and even 3D model generation. A surprising amount of the files Dota uses are actually text files, so this was a huge time saver for me, and the topic really deserves a video of its own. The last core system was the firewall, which really wasn't too bad once I learned how to spawn particles. So, with all the core systems figured out, the project entered what I like to call go mode. Finishing the prototype no longer meant solving any technical problems. It just became a matter of filling up the map and the mod with stuff. Wraith Kira did most of the map work, and I took care of the rest. Since then, I've been in cycles of playtesting, updating the game, and then playtesting some more. Though this is where the biggest issue is for me right now. Playtesting the mod is hard. It being a battle royale game means I need at least 4 people available at the same time, and it being a Dota 2 mod means asking those people to install 40 plus gigs worth of game. Plus, any change I make has to go through the workshop moderation queue, so if I want to make even a tiny change, it can take up to an hour to be able to test it, which isn't going to happen in a single playtest. These issues have made it much harder to build up momentum and has led to me staying in a holding pattern for weeks at a time. Not because I get stuck on technical things like coding, but because I really don't want to waste my time fixing something that ain't broke. Instead, I want the playtesting to inform what needs fixing, but that can't happen unless I can playtest. All issues aside though, the game is actually getting pretty fun. What playtesting I've been able to arrange has been extremely useful, both for encouraging me to press on and figuring out what needs to be a priority for development. As of Alpha 4.1, I think that with some updates to the map and some improvements to the UI, I could see myself and my friends wanting to play Erbs 2 a lot. That all said, I can't help but to think about making Erbs 2 from scratch. There's a lot of friction involved in making a game as a Dota mod, and it's been wearing on me, with the difficulty of playtesting being the biggest issue. It's been hard at times to stay motivated to develop a game that's so hard to play and test. Though even if I do move on from Dota to do something from scratch, this hasn't been a year of wasted time. I've learned a lot and I've had fun. Modding Dota showed me a lot about how one of the biggest MOBAs in the world was designed, and playing my game has also been pretty fun. As always, there's a link to the source code for my mod in the description. Thanks for watching, play my mod, and I'll catch you next time.